Welcome to the World Space Week podcast for 2011.
I'm Elf.
And I'm Haritina Mogosanu, Manager of Educational Relations for World Space Week Association.
To celebrate World Space Week, we've put together a series of podcasts to excite and enthrall you with the most interesting and inspiring space stories from across the globe.
Our guest from today is Mark Rocket. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Welcome to our podcast. First question is about yourself. Would you like to tell us something about yourself?
Well, I guess in the context of space, I was born in 1970 and I'm a Star Wars generation kid. And I vividly remember all the excitement around the film, the ideas, the technology, not just Star Wars, but also Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Alien, Moonraker, Close Encounters, E.T., all the Blade Runner, all those great films. And I've been fascinated by space and science fiction for as long as I can remember. I guess 2006 was a pivotal year for me. It was when I bought a ticket with Virgin Galactic and when I introduced seed capital to Rocketlab with the primary aim to develop a suborbital rocket to be launched here from New Zealand. Like a lot of people, I'm compelled by the concept of space travel, and flights with Virgin Galactic will offer an incredible experience. You know, the carrier craft releases the rocket at about 15 kilometers altitude. You free fall before the rocket engine kicks in. That pushes you back into your seat, and you go up to 6 Gs of acceleration. And you're soon traveling 3 times the speed of sound. And then the engine cuts off, and you will see the Earth below and the vastness of space. Experiencing zero gravity and floating around the cabin will certainly be a highlight. And then the return trip is going to be pretty exciting as well. I think Virgin Galactic are blazing the way forward, creating one of the first stepping stones to making space truly accessible. And I'm pleased that I've had the opportunity to support their incredible endeavours. And so far, they've offered a superb customer experience and make us feel really involved. So that's a pretty cool space thing that I've really enjoyed participating in. And the second one is Rocketlab. And when I got back to New Zealand in May 2006, after a Virgin Galactic event in LA and Mojave, I started looking around for opportunities. I talked a bit in the media about my Virgin Galactic connection and how I'd like to see a space industry develop here in New Zealand. Meanwhile, at the very same time, my future Rocketlab business partner, Peter Beck, was looking for an investor for his rocket business, and he got in touch with me. At the end of 2006, Peter quit his job at Industrial Research, and he put all of his energy into developing Rocketlab. And he built up a great team around him, undertook research and development, and then 3 years later, on 30th of November 2009, we were standing on Great Mercury Island with RT-1, a suborbital rocket, ready to launch. And that was obviously an incredible day. The launch was actually planned for 7 a.m., but the fuel line did not disengage as it was designed. And there was a strong media contingent there doing a live broadcast, so that was a high-pressure situation. But luckily, Peter managed to find a solution, and at 2:28 in the afternoon, RT-1 launched. And the rocket achieved a full 22-second engine burn, clean separation, and it was on the right trajectory. We recovered the first stage engine about 10 kilometres downrange the next day, and the data indicated that we did reach space, but we weren't able to retrieve the flight computer, so we can't 100% validate that. But either way, it was a very successful first launch of an entirely new rocket engine and airframe, and obviously doing those sort of first launches, it's far from guaranteed that it's going to be successful in the rocket business.
Oh, absolutely. It's a game of chance and probability as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, certainly there's a lot of things that have to line up to make it all go smoothly. And we got most of it lined up, but unfortunately the little bit at the end, recovering the second stage with the data, just didn't quite happen.
That's a real shame. But how did it feel watching it go up in front of all these people? Obviously, it was really, really high stress, but you must have felt some kind of an excited thrill run through you after all that preparation.
Yeah, exactly. It was pure exhilaration, and it was just a beautiful, powerful rocket. It's hard to describe it, but only standing 6 meters tall, it certainly made a huge roar and reverberated over the island. And just to see it go straight up into the sky was just a powerful feeling. And there's about 40 or 50 people there, and a lot of them weren't really space people, but some of them were crying from the emotion of it, the ups and downs of the day, and then seeing the power of the rocket take off. It was an incredible feeling.
So, I guess the commercialization of space and encouraging space tourism is a big part of Virgin Galactic's kind of business model and what they're doing to normalize space to the common man, if you like. But what is it about current progress that actually is causing us to celebrate Space Week, in your opinion?
Well, millions of people on this planet feel compelled to contemplate space and a place in this universe. And many of us dream of traveling to space. We have new technologies developing and an injection of new private enterprise money going into the space sector. So it will make the coming decades pretty exciting. Most New Zealanders use space technology every day. Cell phones, internet, GPS, international television channels and news. And some of the technology that's eventuated from America's space program, for example, like telecommunication satellites, cordless drills, smoke detectors and water purifiers and laser surgery and all that kind of stuff, has had a huge impact. The US government has calculated that for every dollar invested, they get about $8 return. So as well as being a survival imperative for humanity to colonize space, it also makes pretty good commercial sense. I think World Space Week is a superb concept to support and to raise people's awareness of what has gone before and what is on the horizon. I believe New Zealand needs to support space technology and to develop space-orientated businesses. At the moment, nearly all the space action is happening in the Northern Hemisphere. Right here, right now, we have a golden opportunity to take the lead in the Southern Hemisphere. Billions of dollars is being poured into the private space industry, so let's grab the opportunity and be part of a very exciting space future.
And it sounds like, as part of the kind of Rocketlab initiative, that you guys are really on the crest of the wave with this. It's really exciting to watch, actually.
Yeah, no, it has been a really exciting time.
With NASA and a lot of the other government-funded space exploration organizations experiencing budget cuts and being kind of put on the economic sideline for the kind of perceivable future, who else do you see providing the kind of tools that we need as a species to explore space and the upper reaches of our atmosphere and everything beyond?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, firstly, NASA is still getting around $20 billion per year, and their budget has been increasing. They just didn't get the extra funding they needed for the Mars Orion program. And as an aside, the US military gets an annual budget of over $600 billion a year, so maybe they should make a few less fighter planes and tanks and stuff. But the main point is that NASA are still getting a solid annual budget, but they just need to look at new ways of doing things. They are being encouraged to contract out projects to the private space industry, and I believe that over the next few decades this will put them in a better position than they were with putting all their manned spaceflight efforts into the space shuttle. Personally, I think they should have been contracting out projects in the private space industry right after Apollo. They lost a lot of momentum with the space shuttle program. Secondly, countries like China, India, Japan, Russia may become more active. China in particular is aiming to reach the moon in the 2020s, and they likely won't want to stop there. And I think that in turn will spur America to reinvest back into space. And I just hope that they sort out the economic woes by then.
It sounds like you think that there's a nice kind of there's a nice crossover between government-funded space exploration programs and private-funded space exploration programs. Do you have any thoughts on what kind of advantages the private research and the private firms might have over government-funded exploration?
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of a contentious subject, and people have their different opinions on that. Again, personally, I don't think it's really worked out that well the way that it has been working. If we're talking about America in particular, obviously it's a very political subject over there, and they have to spread the different large projects amongst different states, and to get things moving ahead, you've got to please a lot of people that don't necessarily just have space in mind. They have the economic advantages of their electorate or whatever. So that it's a very sensitive and complex topic. But by contracting out to the private space industry, you probably shortcut a bit of that stuff that's going on. And also, commercial companies can tend to do it a little bit cheaper. I mean, if you look at what SpaceX are doing at the moment, that's pretty exciting stuff. And they're doing it a lot cheaper than what NASA could do it. And likewise, Virgin Galactic, the sort of budget that they're dealing with to put a suborbital rocket into commercial practice is a lot less than what NASA could do. So I do think the commercial world look at things a little bit differently, and I'm hoping that they can spend the dollars more wisely and be a bit more fiscally regimented the way that they approach things.
Being involved with space and rocketry, you obviously had to deal with quite a lot of automation and robotics. Have you found any commercial benefits of manned exploration and manned missions versus kind of robotic ones?
Yeah, well, of course, unmanned space exploration is where we have a strong New Zealand connection. So William Pickering stands out as a New Zealander that has made a huge space contribution. He was the director of Jet Propulsion Laboratories for over 20 years, and JPL were responsible for many of America's unmanned space missions. Now, under his directorship, they sent up the first US satellite, extensively mapped the moon for the first time, sent the first successful Mariner probes to Venus and then Mars, and he was a powerful orator who traveled the world encouraging the exploration of our solar system. He made a massive contribution to space research. Yeah, I mean, in exploring the solar system and beyond, arguably America's unmanned program has already achieved a lot more than their manned counterpart.
Yeah, fair enough. It's, kind of pushing the bounds of the Helios sheath is always a reasonable goal, I think. So do you think that manned exploration actually has a future, or do you reckon that other than space tourism, it will largely become robotic from here on out?
Well, yeah, certainly from a cost perspective, it's difficult to justify some of those long missions unless it's a flag-waving exercise. I mean, you can do a whole lot more with a lot less budget if you are sending probes out.